Welcome to A Day with FMZ, a global initiative to bring in leaders' perspective and also education series. And typically we cover different topics and leaders across the globe. And today we have Laurie Gilmer. She is president of our IFMA chapter board. And welcome, Laurie, and thank you for accepting this. And I have my co-host, Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
And over to you.
Laurie, thank you so much for coming on. As the chair of the IFMA Global Board and VP and COO at a facilities consulting firm, you certainly have a lot on your plate. So we're thrilled and honored that you've made time to share with our audience.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate being here.
As the chair of a truly global professional board, you certainly hear of all the challenges and perspectives that impact FMs worldwide. What would you say are the biggest challenges today for FM professionals?
You know, it's interesting. This is a big question, and when we spend a lot of time thinking through for IFMA, one of the ways we work to figure out what the challenges are research. And so this year we've put together some different reports. We have 3 research reports that we have issued that talk about the exactly these issues, the significant changes that are impacting FM. And we also get that feedback through the annual membership survey. One of my favorite ways to get feedback is to also just talk to people, get to know our members. Members in IFMA, they like to share their issues, and we like to work on them in IFMA. We're certainly stronger together. The things that I see is sort of, if I were to pick my bullet point list, I would say workplace has been a huge concern, particularly coming out of COVID, looking at collaborative spaces and trying to accommodate different ways of working. We're seeing in the news every day now, companies are starting to get back to more traditional calls for people to be in offices and people not wanting to necessarily do that. And so while that call back to an office isn't within the facility manager's purview, accommodating it is, and figuring out how to make spaces that are welcoming, engaging, and allow for people to do those necessary tasks and things that they need to do in the building. That's people want a little bit more as well. We've all been, a lot of us have been working from home, and so having even some of those relaxed accommodations is something that's really coming up. A couple of other things that have been hitting are carbon neutrality, sustainability, net zero, carbon neutral, carbon reduction. Again, no surprise here. Sustainability has been with us for a long, long time. Facility managers have been dealing with constrained resources, managing resources well. What changed kind of in the early 2000s was the language of sustainability. And what's changed now is the language of carbon neutral and the language of ESG, so that environmental, social, governance perspectives. The economic, not environmental. Environmental used to be the old one, but now we're really worried about the financial and the governance. So that's been interesting. Where the FM doesn't control the space, the FM is having to navigate the space and is also having to talk with their companies knowledgeably about what they're doing in the physical environment that contributes to outcomes that may affect things like financing and whatnot. And then a third thing that has been at the forefront is security, safety and security. And there's a couple of different aspects. There's physical security, there's cybersecurity. IFMA's been spending a lot of time looking at those 2 issues. Those have been a key concern from due to recent events, advances in technology, et cetera. So we've been doing some deep dives into how to understand the world of security. That's not the natural place that the FM exists, but there's a lot of crossover, and we care about keeping our organizations safe. We care about keeping people in our facilities safe. And it happens at both a physical level as well as that cyber level. So that you're kind of figuring out how do we deal with that space, and also how do we not invite risk? Something as simple as someone hacking into our building automation system or our computerized maintenance management system, making sure that we're not the weak links, or do our best to be the strongest that we can in our education. So for us, we're really concerned. Those are kind of my top 3 right now.
Thank you so much.
And I think you briefly touched upon sustainability, technology, health and safety. And just to give a thought, like what we would love to hear from you, like your perspective on what are the current challenges and FM faces. I think you're given a perspective of what is going to be a future of FM. What are the challenges you think they're facing currently from your perspective?
Sure. I think the some of the challenges for the facility manager, in number one, it's understanding how to put all of this together. There's three areas. They're often hitting every facility manager. So getting the information to navigate that space and to know what part they play. And then what can they do about it? How do they speak to the C-suite? One thing that we talk about in FM is we say things like the facility manager should be at the table, the decision table. And typically when we say something like that, we mean higher management, the C-suite, that sort of thing. The challenge with that, though, is that one has to be educated in one's words and presentation in order to be invited and seen as a valuable contributor to the C-suite. So something that we pay, again, a lot of attention to in IFMA and work to prepare facility managers in is that articulation of value. We look at things like total cost of ownership, looking at economic analysis, not down to the details that maybe a financial person would, but within reason. We're helping to educate the facility manager. So we have programs like the Facility Management Professional Credential. We have the CFM. With these different educational materials are really helping pave the way for the facility manager to be able to communicate. So I think that, there's sort of the realistic challenges that you hit with each of those areas, the cyber and whatnot, but education I see as that real core component that allows the facility manager to, number one, understand, number two, act and implement programs, to think kind of at that strategy level and go all the way into how it affects operations and maintenance.
You sort of hit on, I think FMs are the luckiest people alive. I love the work that I do, and talking about them having a place at the table. When you hear about FMs that are having a truly positive impact on the profession, do you see a common thread or a key to their impact?
That's a really good question. Facility managers, they're really the hands-on frontline people. One of the things that I see that makes really great FMs stand out is their dedication to service, their understanding of their organization and what it's about. Something that we often say in our classes at IFMA is, whatever your facility organization is, or whatever your organization is about, so must your facility management organization. So if we're all about saving lives at a hospital, then the facility management team, we need to be all about that. If we're about making widgets, then we need to understand that widget production needs to not go down. I had a team that I worked with at one point who they would say, they were in retail, and the facility manager said, our most important thing behind safety is keep the registers ringing. And he understood that. And so for them, then they took that core principle and they distilled it down into, what does that mean for facilities? Well, for them, it meant we need to have continuous power. We need to have, and they sort of walked it down through the various systems. That was educated right through every element of the facility management team. So what I see in facility managers as they're navigating challenges and kind of what the things are that make them great and make the best really the best, it starts with that core kernel understanding. It's being able to kind of navigate that space. It's not just answering the phone and being responsive, though that's certainly a core point of the job, but it's that ability to think strategically and long-term, to understand the organization, and then to figure out, how are you going to take your team through that? That's what the best facility managers are doing well.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. I think briefly explained about challenges, also what is the outlook. And today, the most important topic, as you rightly mentioned, is about ESG, becoming like net zero, carbon neutral, right? Sustainability is certainly a prominent topic in FM, and I think if you look at IFMA Point has provided excellent resources from last couple of years to help the FM with the competencies, and we also have SAP very specific to sustainability certification course. While some organizations are able to make a broad statement in support of sustainability. Others may be forced to make less sustainable choices in the name of budget, which can put an FM in a challenging position. What advice would you give to a facility manager just starting a sustainability journey and struggling with the challenges? Typically, as an FM, we struggle with the budget resources. I think, what would you suggest? I don't say it's only sustainability. Any initiatives would take it to a C-suite on the table. I think you'll have this challenge. So what would you suggest?
The budget is almost always, it seems like that's universally the thing that people say, oh my goodness, I cannot do because, and we're challenged. We're always resource constrained. We always have to think critically about what's the thing that's screaming loudest, what's the thing that's going to help us get to where we need to go. In terms of sustainability, number one, I'd think through, how does your organization think about money? And where is it? What is it that causes the organization to think about whether or not something is worth it? Sometimes they see facilities as a place where money just goes. It's not seen as an investment in organizational success. It's seen as a cost sink. And so for the FM starting out, think about facilities, like change your perspective. Think about not just where's the money going to go into the big black hole of operations and maintenance, but how is what you're doing every day contributing to organizational success? What happens if something fails? How does that affect something that we really care about? So if you kind of spin that over to sustainability, what we used to do in sustainability is we would think about things like putting in bike racks and things that wouldn't necessarily make a huge difference in how the facility ran. It may not make a dent in the carbon footprint. Maybe aspirational, it may connect to people. It may be a very good thing to do. What we're really challenged with now is figuring out what are the things we can do that are really going to matter most. And so that FM starting out, I will tell you, we like to think that something like replacing the chiller with their latest, greatest technology. Oh, if I only had the latest, greatest building automation system, or if I had a fancy front end that's going to manage my energy for me, then life will be so much better. We have these thoughts as if we can't manage our own facilities or we're severely crimped. And really, that's not true. The majority of your impact, particularly when you think about energy, water, waste, those sorts of things we care about. And energy is intimately tied, as you know, to carbon neutrality and carbon reduction sorts of goals. What really tends to matter most is not the equipment that you have that plays a part. It's how you operate your building. So for the FM that's thinking, oh my goodness, I don't have the budget, I promise you, if you take a look around your facility, you can work on ways to tighten up your schedules, to look for things that are running that shouldn't be running, look for systems that are out of sync. There's ways that you can carve out improvement without really costing a lot of money, but you do need to know your facilities. You do need to know your systems. You do need to be able to work with your people. So I think we like to think budget's the constraint. It can be, but it doesn't need to be the reason that we don't succeed. There are a number of other ways around.
That was an extraordinary answer. It ties to what I've always said, that is incremental steps may matter the most. And what may matter the most to your organization, I don't want to say it isn't always the bottom line, but it might be doing the right thing. And doing the right thing doesn't have to be grand steps.
You were exactly right, Lisa. It does not need to be grand gestures. We don't need the unveiling of a brand new system to mark our successes. I think one of the other challenges I would put in there is the ability not just to make changes, but to then, for the facility manager, talk about what you did, and the impact that it's having through the lens of what the organization cares about. If you were to implement something that facility that I said was all about keeping the registers ringing, think about how energy management might relate to that. I had a facility manager a long time ago once told me he was a facility manager at a biomedical firm, and he tied his organizational success to research. He basically said, the reason that I keep all of our process gases in line, that I that I worry about the emergency generators, and I worry about sustainability. I do care about the environment, and he had his things that personally motivated him. But he said, every bit that I can save and every bit that I can contribute toward the uptime of our laboratories and our research and development activities, I know that I'm helping people who have these particular health conditions. I'm helping this particular doctor improve the lives of others who we don't even know. And that was something I thought, my goodness, this man has it. He really understands a much bigger picture. And so his everyday activities, he's tied that into that large vision. I think if we could think at that level and communicate at that level why we do what we do, it would help us drive toward better outcomes. It would help us think less sort of cost sink and a little bit more investment.
Thank you, Laura. I think one of the things is about to start with the low-hanging fruits. I think create a roadmap, what you want to achieve, a long-term plan, and also have a short-term plan. And there are certain things which is under our control and remit, maybe energy management, what is that we do on a day-to-day basis. As Lisa rightly said, to look up what we can minimize, right? So what we can reduce. So start from a reduction, then technology, everything can come into play. So once we start demonstrating, even the management or a C-suite will also build a confidence. Even if you go with the budget, they know that, okay, these guys have done, there is a proven record. Even if I'm investing something on sustainability, I know it's going to have a ROI. So thank you, Laurie, for your time. I think you covered it overall. What is that an FM we need to look at? What are the challenges, and how do we address the challenges? And we always have a constraint. So it's a universal problem to have a constraint of budget, resources, and timeline. That's not going to change. But the way we want to operate our built environment, the way we define the strategies and advocate ourselves and create a value addition to organizations, to community is very, very important. Thank you for being with us, and definitely want to cover more from you in upcoming series. Thank you, Lisa, and keep watching us. If you have any specific topics or any leader you want to cover, please write back to us. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.